Set 10 has just been released, and to help you climb, I'm showing you the top 10 comps that I have had the most success with on PvE. All of these comps will be linked in an Imgur album that is available for patrons and YouTube members, and the links to join those are down in the description. First up is Disco Dazzler TF. This is the level 8 version of the comp, but it will change a little depending on what your headliner is. The best headliners are any of the Twisted Fate ones. You will always pick the first one of those you see, regardless of whether it's Disco or Dazzler. And if you're not able to find him, then take any of the frontline headliners. Since we are running a 4-cost carry, we really want to get to level 8 with this comp before we roll. But if you have to roll sooner at level 6 or 7, then you usually want to play around Lux or Vex as your item carrier until you find him. If you are able to push farther to level 9, you want to add in Illaoi or Zac for Bruiser. In terms of items, we want 1 mana generating item for TF, and then 2 AP items. The best is Sojin as of now, and the best 2 AP items depend a little bit on the lobby, but generally the standard AP combos from previous sets work great. The buildable AP items on TF are JG, GS, Deathcap, Archangels, Guardbreaker, and Gunblade. Blitzcrank wants tank items. These standard tank items from last set still work great on him, like Bramble, Declaw, Warmogs, Sunfire, Redemption, Stoneplate, Steadfast Heart, Adaptive Helm, and Protector's Vow. In the very late game, you can itemize Siggs. He wants mana generating items as his spell shreds MR, which is great for our team to deal more damage. The other items want to be the same EP items you'd put on TF. Next up is Big Shot Ezreal. This comp is more focused on games where you are able to push to higher levels like level 8 and 9, which is due to the amount of legendaries we need for the comp to work. The best headliner is Big Shot Ezreal. Heartsteel Ezreal is still worth it as his spell becomes stronger, but the extra trait has little to no value. Other headliners that are worth picking up are Jhin or any of the other frontliners. This board can also be adjusted. You can easily drop Misfortune and Lucian, as they only give you 2 Jazz without any headliners. Generally, you want to add in more frontline to let Jhin and Ezreal scale up, or other units that help them cast faster, or help them deal more damage. As for items, Ezreal wants 1 mana generating item and 2 damage items. The mana generating item wants to be either Blue Buff or Rageblade, which you pick depends on your comp. If you have more of a stall comp, then go for Rageblade, and if you have a weaker frontline, then go for Blue Buff. The 2 AD items you build want to scale off the raw AD you get from Big Shot. Therefore, crit items like Last Whisper and IE are great, but also items like Deathblade, Guardbreaker, and Giant Slayer still work fine. Tank items go on Illaoi, Blitzcrank, or Zac, depending on who you find and 2-star first. In late game, you can also throw AD items onto Jhin. He wants pretty much the exact same items as Ezreal. Next up is KDA Ahri. This will be more focused on the top 4 playstyle, as we are not reliant on any legendaries, and we only need 1 4-cost champion to make this work, which is Ahri. The best headliner is any of the Ahris, but also any KDA or Spellweaver headliner will work, especially before level 8. The board will not change too much. Based on your headliner, you will usually go for 7 KDA or 5 Spellweavers when you are at level 8. And Kennen will usually get replaced by a stronger tank late game unless you need the item from Superfan. As for items, you want Blue Buff and 2 AP items on Ahri. The best AP items can be any out of JG, GS, Gunblade, and Guardbreaker. Since we get a ton of raw AP from the traits, we don't need more raw AP, therefore items like Deathcap and Archangels are not typically built in this comp. Next up is EDM Zed. With this comp, we're playing around 2 4-cost carries, one being Zed as our main carry, and the other is Zac as our main tank. You generally want to push to level 8 to find this board, but the 8th unit here depends on who your headliner is, but it will usually be just Illaoi for 2 bruisers. The best headliner is any of Zed or any Zac, and then go for a Crowd Diver unless you hit one of those 2. As for items, Zed wants pretty much the same items as in set 8. He wants Edge of Night so that he can get more attack speed and is able to drop aggro. Then he wants 1 healing item, where the best one is BT, but Hodge also works, and the 3rd item is a damage item. Titan's Works or other AD items like Infinity Edge, Deathblade, Last Whisper, Hurricane, or Giant Slayer also work. Next up is Pentakill. With this comp, we will either be carrying Viego or Karthus based on our items, and sometimes both. This is one of the most consistent comps as it's not reliant on any legendaries. It can be adjusted based on who your headliner is, and the best headliners are to get Pentakill Karthus or Viego, but getting their secondary traits as headliners also work greatly. Headliner Mordekaiser or Blitzcrank with Sentinel also works. As for items, Karthus wants 1 mana generating item and 2 AP items. The best mana item is Sojin, and the best AP items are JG, and then 1 raw AP item like Deathcap or Archangels, or a second crit item like Guardbreaker. Viego wants 1 healing item, which is BT or Hodge, and then he wants melee AD items like Titans and Sterix. You can also go double healing on Viego if you already have good damage. and tank items go on Mordekaiser, although you can put them on Blitzcrank if you are struggling to hit him. Next up is Crowd Diver Katarina. This is the best reroll comp so far. You will slow roll at level 6 for 3-star Katarina, and then you can go for 3-star Nico or Yone as well, but they are not often necessary. The 8th unit you add in depends on who the headliner is. If it's Country, you will usually add in Thresh, and if it's Crowd Diver, you will usually add in Kiana. You can also replace some of the 1-costs that you don't need for better units. You need Katarina as the headliner to play this comp. Any other legendaries don't really work that well. Any other headliners don't really work that well for the comp. As for items, you want 3 crit items on Katarina. JG is the most important, so that we burst champions with a spell crit. And the next 2 items want to be double Hodge, so we can heal back up and also get more damage. You can also build 1 Guardbreaker or QSS, but definitely need JG or Hodge for this comp to work. Tank items will usually go on Nico or a different tank, and you will just make whichever items you can without using up components for Katarina. Next up is Samira Urgot reroll. You will go for 3-star Samira and Urgot by slow rolling at level 7. Once you hit the 3-star, push level 8 and look to add in a Guardian or a different unit based on your headliner. The best headliners is any Urgot or Samira headliner. There are not really any others that work or are worth going for, especially since we have a lot of time to hit the preferred headliner when slow rolling. As for items, Samira wants 3 AD items, and you will pick 3 out of IE, Last Whisper, Giant Slayer, Deathblade, Hurricane, Guardbreaker, and Hodge. Urgot wants 1 healing item, where the best one by far is BT, and the other 2 items want to be frontline AD items like Titans and Sterak's. You will prioritize whichever one of these Samira and Urgot you get as your first headliner, but note that Urgot's items are a lot more specific and less flexible, so be careful when using up his components for Samira's items. Next up is Punk reroll. This is a 1 and 2 cost reroll comp, with Jinx as the main carry. Guardians is by far the best frontline, so we will fill out that vertical to support Jinx. We will first slow roll at level 5 for 3-star Jinx, and then go for Kennen and Taric at the same time. Then we push to level 6 to find Pantheon 3-star, and depending on who your headliner is, you will also roll for Vi 3-star at level 5, but that's only the case where you hit Punk as the headliner for Jinx. The only other viable headliner is Pantheon, but generally you need Jinx as the headliner to get enough damage into our team. As for items, we want Rageblade on Jinx. This is because it stacks up nicely with Jinx's spell and allows her to deal even more damage quicker. The other 2 items want to be AD items, and you will pick 2 out of Giant Slayer, Last Whisper, IE, Deathblade, or Guardbreaker. If you don't have Last Whisper on Jinx, then look to build Even Shroud on one of your tanks. Next up is Misfortune reroll. This is another reroll comp that needs 3-star Misfortune and some other 3-star tanks to win. You will get this by slow rolling at level 7 with this board, where the priority is 3-star MF, then 3-star either Echo or Nico, depending on who you are closer to hitting. The best headliner is any MF, but you can also pick Sentinel Echo or Guardian Nico. As for items, you want to have Rageblade on MF and let her scale in the backline, and then we want 2 AD items to finish her build. And the best ones are Last Whisper, Deathblade, and Giant Slayer or IE. As for tank items, you want to build them on Echo and Nico. Next up is 8-bit Caitlyn. This is another 4-cost carry comp, but with this one, we need to stack up 8-bit early to get the damage late game. The best headliners for this comp is any Caitlyn, but hitting Sentinel Blitzcrank can also be powerful if you already have a ton of 8-bit stacks. As for items, Caitlyn items are a bit strange, as you want Sojin for her to cast more often, and then you want at least 1 AD items for her to scale off the spell. IE is typically the best, but Giant Slayer can also work. The third item is either a healing or another AD item, but Gunblade in this case will heal up our frontline and allow for Caitlyn to cast multiple times during the fight. You will itemize Blitzcrank with tank items, and also make sure to build an Even Shroud on one of the other tanks. All of these comps will be in an Imgur album that is available for patrons and YouTube members, and the links to join those are down in the description. You can also check out my written version of this guide over on Tactor, or check out my profile to see more of the other Set 10 content that is on the way. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you want cheat sheets for any of my comp guides, they're available for YouTube members and patrons, and the links to join those are down in the description. And if you want to get better at TFT, join the Discord. We got over 9,000 other players there who are hungry to climb. And if you want to get coached by me, the information is over on the Discord server as well. So take care and see you in the next video.